You did not change. You did not wake up different. You did not grow a second head or speak in a foreign tongue. You are exactly who you were yesterday. And yet, the calls stopped. The warmth drained out of their eyes like water through cracked glass. The smiles became performances. Oh, you noticed. Of course you noticed. You just did not want to believe that people who once pulled you close could pivot so cleanly, so quietly, so completely, without a single word of explanation. I know that feeling. I have lived inside that silence like a man sealed in a coffin that still has air. Enough air to breathe, not enough to scream. They did not announce their exit. They simply subtracted themselves and left you standing in a room full of people, feeling like the most invisible, most disposable, most foolish soul alive. Oh, yes, I know exactly what happened to you, and I am the only one honest enough to tell you the truth. They did not hate you overnight. That is the cruelest part. It was slower than that, quieter than that. It happened in the spaces between messages, in the half-second delay before they smiled, in the way their laughter stopped reaching their eyes when you walked into the room. And you, oh, you sweet, attentive fool, you felt every single millimeter of that withdrawal. You just kept telling yourself you were imagining it. That is what they count on, you know. Your willingness to doubt yourself before you ever dare to doubt them. I have sat in that doubt. I have marinated in it. I have let it pour over me like cold water on a winter floor, wondering what I said, what I did, what invisible law I broke that turned warmth into distance overnight. And then, I stopped asking what I did wrong and started asking something far more dangerous. What did I do, right? See, people do not pull away from weakness. Weakness is comfortable for them. Weakness keeps them needed, wanted, superior. No, people pull away from something else entirely. They pull away when you start becoming something they cannot predict, something they cannot manage, something they cannot keep small enough to fit inside the little box they built for you. You grew, maybe just slightly, maybe just a quiet confidence in your voice, a refusal to laugh at a joke that was really an insult, a single moment where you looked them in the eye and did not flinch first. And they felt it. Oh, they felt it like a tremor under their feet. Because people who need you beneath them have very sensitive ground. I remember the first time I stopped apologizing for taking up space in a conversation, just once. Just one sentence where I spoke without shrinking. And the room shifted. Not dramatically, not with gasps or accusations, just a chill, a recalibration, a silent group decision that I had broken some unspoken rule none of them had ever written down because unwritten rules are so much easier to weaponize. "You have changed," she said across the table, not as a compliment, as a charge, as a verdict delivered without a trial. And I looked at her, I looked at her so carefully, and I thought, yes, I have, and you are terrified. Because the version of me you needed was the version that needed you back, and that version is gone. That is the first thing I want you to understand. The withdrawal you are experiencing right now is not punishment for failure. It is punishment for progress. They are rearranging their relationship with you because the old arrangement no longer benefits them the way it used to. You were a mirror. that made them look tall. You tilted. Now the reflection is honest, and honest mirrors get turned to the wall. I know this sounds bitter. I know it sounds like the rambling of a man who sits too long in the dark and builds conspiracies out of coincidences. But here is the thing about sitting in the dark. Your eyes adjust. And once they do, you start seeing the architecture of things, the hidden scaffolding behind the smiles, the transaction disguised as affection, the loyalty that was always conditional, always waited, always one quiet betrayal away from evaporating. And when I finally saw it, when the shapes in the darkness became clear, I did not weep, I did not rage, I laughed. Oh, not because it was funny, because it was so perfectly, devastatingly, beautifully predictable. They were never yours. They were never mine. We were borrowed light to them, something to read by until they found a brighter bulb. And now the lights have shifted, and now you are standing in your own shadow, wondering what you did to deserve the dark. But here is the twist, and I need you to sit with this. The dark is not your punishment. The dark is your introduction to yourself, to the version of you that does not need their warmth to survive, to the quieter, sharper, more dangerous thing you are always becoming underneath all that people-pleasing. They did you a favor. They just did not mean to. Here is something nobody tells you. The ones who hurt you most were not the ones who left loudly. They were not the ones who slammed doors, sent the devastating final text, or made a scene in front of witnesses. No. The ones who hurt you most were the ones who stayed quiet, stayed close enough to watch, stayed just present enough that you never thought to question them. Because we are trained, you and I, to fear the people who leave. We track exits. We mourn departures. We write entire novels in our heads about the ones who walked out. But we never write a single page about the ones who stayed seated at the table and slowly, methodically, drained every ounce of energy from the room while smiling across the breadbasket. I trusted those ones more. Oh, that is the part that curls the edges of my memory when I revisit it late at night. I handed my trust like a lit candle to the ones who stayed, and they did not blow it out dramatically. They just cupped their hands around it, slowly starved it of oxygen, and watched it die with the patience of people who had done this before. "I am always here for you," he said, leaning back in his chair like a man who owned the building. And I believed him, because why would I not believe someone who never left? Presence felt like loyalty. Proximity felt like love. But I have learned at great cost, that the most dangerous people in your life are never the strangers. They are the familiar ones, the ones whose number you never had to save because it was already memorized. The ones who knew your patterns, your soft spots, your particular way of flinching when someone raised their voice just slightly above conversational. They mapped you. While you were busy being grateful for their company, they were taking notes. And you handed them the pen. Now here is where I need you to really listen. Because this is the part people always skip because it is uncomfortable. You knew. Some part of you, some quiet, humming, animal part of you that lives beneath logic and narrative knew something was wrong, long before the silence, long before the temperature dropped, long before the changed overnight feeling settled into your chest like swallowed glass. You felt a flicker, a hesitation you could not name, a moment where your instincts whispered something and your hopes screamed over them. And you chose hope. Oh, I do not blame you for that. I chose hope too once. It is the most human thing we do, betting on people with evidence that barely covers the wager. But here is the cruel twist inside that tenderness. Your hope was not naive. It was hijacked. They learned what you needed to hear. They studied the specific frequency of reassurance that would quiet your instincts every single time those instincts started to rise. "You are overthinking," she said, touching my arm. And just like that, the alarm in me went back to sleep. How elegant, how efficient, how utterly, completely calculated. This is what I mean when I say the ones who stayed quiet knew first. They knew the shift was coming. They knew the warmth was borrowed. They knew the whole arrangement had an expiration stamped somewhere you could not see. And they said nothing, because saying something would have required a kind of courage they were never interested in developing. It is easier to let someone discover the fire by walking into it than to warn them at the door. And so you walked in. And now you are standing here smelling of smoke, asking why nobody mentioned the heat. I will tell you why. Because your pain was never their problem. It was their comfort. Your confusion kept you circling back. Your need for closure kept you available. Your desperate search for the explanation they would never give kept the door open just wide enough for them to walk through whenever the new arrangement stopped serving them. You were not abandoned. You were managed. There is a difference. And the difference matters because one is something that happens to you, and the other is something that was done to you deliberately. Quietly, with a smile you still remember fondly. Oh, let that land. Let it really land. Sit inside the weight of it until you stop trying to make it lighter than it actually is. Because the moment you stop softening the truth is the moment you stop being manageable. There is a moment, a precise, unrepeatable, almost surgical moment, where something inside you stops grieving the people who left and starts studying them instead. I remember mine. It did not arrive with thunder. It did not announce itself. It came quietly, the way the most important things always do, sitting across from someone who was explaining very calmly, very reasonably, why my feelings were an overreaction. And I watched their mouth move, and I felt nothing, not anger, not hurt, not the familiar, desperate, clawing need to be understood by someone who had already decided not to understand me, just nothing. And in that nothing, oh, in that clean, hollow, perfect nothing, I found something I had not felt in years, clarity. See, I had spent so long trying to be easy, easy to love, easy to be around, easy to forgive, easy to keep. I had sanded down every sharp edge, swallowed every inconvenient truth, laughed at things that were not funny, agreed with things that were not right, performed a version of myself so palatable, so digestible, so relentlessly low maintenance, that I had practically gift-wrapped myself for people who were never going to value the contents. "You are just so easy to talk to," they used to say, and I took it as a compliment. Oh, what a magnificent mistake that was. Easy to talk to, easy to confide in, easy to use as a sounding board, a comfort object, a warm body in the room that asked nothing difficult in return. I was not a person to them. I was a service. And services do not get loyalty. Services get used until something cheaper, closer, or more convenient comes along. And then they get replaced without ceremony, without notice, without so much as a thank you for all the hours of themselves they quietly poured out on your behalf. Now here is the twist I need you to feel in your chest. Not just understand, feel. The version of you they are currently withdrawing from is not the version they are punishing. It is the version they are afraid of. Because somewhere between yesterday and today you stopped performing. Maybe just slightly. Maybe just in the way you hesitated before agreeing to something you hated. Maybe in the half-second pause before you laughed at their joke. Maybe in the way you looked out of the window instead of at their face when they were speaking. Such small things. Such microscopic, barely measurable things. And yet they registered. Because people who feed on your compliance have extraordinarily sensitive instruments. They do not need a seismograph to feel the tremor of your resistance. They feel it in their teeth. "You seem different lately," he said, narrowing his eyes just slightly, disguising the threat as concern. And I smiled, not the old smile, not the warm, reassuring, "Please do not be upset with me" smile. A different one, quieter, slower. The smile of a man who finally understands the game being played and has decided to stop pretending he does not know the rules. "Do I said. Not a question. A door closing, and I watched him recalibrate. Watched him search my face for the familiar anxiety, the apologetic lean, the reflexive need to smooth the atmosphere that I had always provided before. And found nothing there for him. Oh, the discomfort that crossed his face in that moment was the most honest thing I had ever seen him express. Because it was involuntary. It was real. It was the raw, unfiltered reaction of a person who has just realized the thing they were leaning on has learned to stand upright. And upright things are so much harder to use as furniture. This is the part where I tell you something that will sound monstrous, but is actually the most compassionate truth I can offer you. Stop trying to recover the relationship. Stop drafting the message in your head. Stop rehearsing the conversation where you finally say the right thing in the right tone at the right moment, and they look at you and soften, and everything slides back into warmth again. That conversation does not exist. Not because you are not eloquent enough, not because you did not love them correctly, but because what they loved was never you. It was your availability, your forgiveness, your extraordinary, almost architectural patience with being treated as less than you were. And you have started running low on that particular resource. They can feel it, and it frightens them. Not because they will miss you, because they will have to find someone else willing to be furniture. Oh. And that is work. That requires effort. That requires starting over, building the trust of a new person slowly, carefully, learning their particular soft spots and their specific frequency of reassurance all over again. You were convenient. You were known. You were already broken in, and now you are becoming inconveniently, stubbornly, dangerously whole. So they withdraw, they punish, they manufacture distance and call it your fault and wait to see if the guilt will drag you back to manageable. Here is what I did. I let them wait. I sat in the silence they manufactured, and I furnished it with my own thoughts, my own conclusions, my own slow and devastating reconstruction of every moment I had misread as love that was actually leverage. And when I was done, when I was finally completely done, I was not angry, I was not broken, I was not the man who needed their warmth to survive the night. I was something colder, something quieter, something that had learned to generate its own heat. And cold things, you see, do not beg. They do not negotiate. They do not send the message. They simply exist at a temperature the wrong people cannot tolerate. Become intolerable. That is my advice. Not cruel, not vengeful, simply, precisely, permanently intolerable to the ones who only valued you when you were easy to swallow. Let me tell you what they never feared. They never feared your anger. Anger is loud. Anger is readable. Anger gives them something to point at, something to defend against, something to show other people as evidence that you were always the unstable one. They never feared your sadness either. Sadness kept you soft. Sadness kept you reaching. Sadness is just love with nowhere left to go, and people who feed on love will absolutely accept it in its grief-stricken, desperate, diminished form. They never feared your silence, not the old silence, the silence of someone waiting to be chosen, the silence of someone holding their breath, hoping the temperature would shift back to warm if they just stayed still enough, small enough, patient enough. That silence was music to them. Oh, the most comfortable music in the world. No, what they feared, what made them rearrange their faces and recalculate their position and quietly begin the withdrawal you are still trying to make sense of, was something far simpler, far more devastating. They feared the moment you stopped needing the explanation. See, as long as you needed to understand why, you were still tethered, still connected by the thin, humiliating wire of unanswered questions. Why did you change toward me? What did I do? Can we talk about this? Every question was a confession that their opinion of you still held architectural weight in your life, that their withdrawal still had the power to destabilize your foundation, and they knew it. Oh, they absolutely knew it. The explanation was never withheld by accident. It was withheld as a tool, because an explanation would have set you free. And free people do not come back. Free people do not send the fourth unanswered message. Free people do not show up softer, smaller, more accommodating, in hopes that this time, this version, this performance of themselves might finally be acceptable enough to earn back the warmth. I just need to understand, I told her once, my voice quieter than I wanted it to be, and she looked at me with something I mistook for empathy. Oh, it was not empathy. It was satisfaction. The specific private satisfaction of a person who knows that your need to understand is the leash that keeps you in the yard. And that is the emotional twist I need you to carry through the rest of your life. The closure you are looking for does not live in their mouth. It never did. It lives in the moment you decide that the question itself no longer needs an answer, that the why matters less than the what now, that you can build a complete and solid life on the foundation of a question you simply chose to stop asking. I stopped asking, not because I found peace, not because I forgave them in the soft, cinematic way people talk about forgiveness, like it is a warm bath you choose to step into. I stopped asking because I finally understood the tactical truth underneath the emotional one. And here is that truth. The people who changed toward you overnight did not change overnight. They revealed overnight. There is a profound and brutal difference. Change implies something shifted. Revelation implies something was always there, patient, waiting, dressed in the costume of warmth and loyalty and presence until the costume was no longer necessary, until you had served whatever function they needed, until the shelf had been emptied, and leaving quietly was more efficient than explaining honestly. You were not failed by people who changed. You were failed by people who performed. And performances always end. The lights come down, the stage clears, and you are left in an empty theater, holding a program with their name printed in it, wondering when the second act is coming. There is no second act. The show closed. They are already in rehearsals for the next one with a newer, more convenient audience who has not yet learned to read the script. Now, here is the final twist. The one I have been saving. The one that reframes everything. The silence, the withdrawal, the managed distance, the explanation they would never give you. Are you listening? Are you really listening? Because I need you to hear this not with the part of you that is still hurt, but with the part of you that is starting to harden. You are not the victim of this story. You are the warning. Every person who treated you like something temporary and disposable and endlessly forgiving, they did not walk away clean. They walked away carrying you, carrying the memory of someone who absorbed their worst behavior and survived it. Carrying the knowledge that somewhere out there is a person who looked directly into what they really were beneath the performance and did not break, did not collapse, did not dissolve into the convenient grief they had planned for you. That is not a small thing. That is a haunting. I am a haunting to every person who thought I would simply fold quietly into the shape of their absence. And now, oh now, so are you. They will think about you, not with guilt. People like that do not traffic in guilt, but with something that lives just below guilt in that murky, uncomfortable 3 a.m. territory where the truth surfaces because the performance takes the night off. They will wonder. They will replay. They will reach for the memory of your face when it suited them to leave and find something in your expression they did not notice at the time. Something settled. Something that was not devastated in quite the way they expected. Something that looked almost like a person who already knew. And that wondering, that quiet, persistent, inescapable wondering, is the only justice this world quietly guarantees. Not courts, not confrontations, not the satisfying final conversation that almost never actually comes. Just the long, slow, private haunting of knowing you dismissed someone who was worth more than your worst behavior deserved. Become worth haunting. That is the whole lesson. Not worth chasing, not worth keeping, worth haunting. Build yourself into something so undeniable, so complete, so precisely and unapologetically whole, that the people who let you go spend the rest of their quiet evenings wondering what exactly it was they decided to throw away. Oh, and do not tell them. Let them wonder. Wondering is the tax they pay for the decision they made. And you have better things to do than to be anyone's answer anymore. I learned that, alone, in the dark, with nothing but the truth for company. And the truth, as it turns out, is the only thing in this world that never withdraws, never recalibrates, never smiles at you differently in the morning than it did the night before. It just sits there, patient, waiting for you to stop running from it and finally pull up a chair. I pulled up a chair. And what I found sitting across from me was not a monster, not a broken man, not the cautionary tale they had been quietly narrating to each other in rooms I was not invited into. What I found was someone who had been paying attention this whole time. Someone who had cataloged every inconsistency, every temperature drop, every performance dressed as presence. Someone who had been taking notes while pretending to take the abuse. Someone who had been quietly, carefully, becoming exactly the thing they never imagined me capable of becoming. And if that sounds familiar, if somewhere in this long, dark, honest confession you heard the echo of your own story looking back at you, then I need you to understand something. You are not at the beginning of your undoing. You are at the end of your invisibility, and the most dangerous version of you has not yet introduced itself. The question is not whether they will come back. The question is whether you will still be someone they recognize.